So I came across this study which says that the part of your brain which activates when you think about strangers is the exact same part of your brain which activates when you think about your future self. Now, I think this study reveals a lot about why we struggle to change. And it makes me question, firstly, what is change? Change is essentially, in this context, you becoming a different version of yourself. And to your mind, a different version of yourself is out in the unknown, because your ego or your current construct of yourself is within the realm of the known. That is what your ego feels safe and is familiar with. But your future self or your higher self or the potential of what you can be doesn't lie within the realm of the known. It lies in the realm of the unknown. And that is why your mind perceives it as a stranger. That is why your mind actually repels it. So every time you decide to change, every time you want to adopt a new habit or drop a bad habit or try to chase your goal and become a different version of yourself, then you will always start to feel this gravitational pull towards your old self. And the thing here is that whatever you want in life, whatever your goal is, whether you want to make music, be an artist, when you want to create, you want to be an inspirational speaker, or even if you want materialistic things like you want a mansion or you want that Ferrari, it's never about having and acquiring these things. It's about being and becoming the individual who is capable of achieving these things. That's how you attract these things into your life. It's about being and becoming the individual who is capable of achieving and attracting these things. It's never about the having and acquiring. And so if it's about being and becoming, that means that you have to be a different individual, a different version of yourself to be able to attract and achieve all the goals and all the dreams that you can ever dream of. Because if you were that individual already, then you would have had all of those things that you dream of. But you don't. So that's why you need to change. That's why you need to change yourself to become that person who is able to achieve those things. You need to match the frequency of that version of you which has all of those things. As Einstein says, everything is energy and that's all there is to it. Match the frequency of the reality you want and you cannot help but get that reality. There is no other way. This is not philosophy, this is physics. Is that to get the reality you want, you must match the frequency of that reality, and matching the frequency of that reality is essentially a change of your inner state. To match the frequency, you have to change your inner state, because the external world is just a mirror of how you feel internally. As the Kabbalion states, as within, so without. And as Rumi says, if you want to change the world, first start with yourself. You have to change yourself internally. But that is the most difficult thing, because when you change yourself, then your mind starts to feed you all this resistance, all this gravity, because it doesn't want to change. It wants to remain the same. Friedrich Nietzsche once said, "A snake which cannot shed its skin perishes." And that reminds me of human beings as well. If we're not able to grow and evolve, then essentially we psychologically perish. You're going to feel the anxiety of remaining where you are and not living up to your potential. And to become this new version of yourself, it requires you to let go of this old part of yourself, to make way for the new. As Alan Watts once said, finding out who you are requires letting go of who you imagine yourself to be. To become who you are, you need to let go of your old previous construct of yourself, which you're so familiar with, which you're comfortable with, which your ego is comfortable with, and that's why it wants to stay the same. You need to let go of all of that. You need to face the fear of uncertainty, of the unknown, of becoming who you want to be. Because on the other side of fear is your higher self. It's love. It's actually love. Your higher self is love. But to get to that love, to get to that higher self version of you, you need to first undergo like a psychological death and rebirth. Sort of like the archetype of the phoenix, which needs to first burn to ashes before it rises anew. As Friedrich Nietzsche says, you must be willing to burn yourself in your own flames. How can you rise anew if you have not first become ashes? You need to let go, and you need to allow that old part of yourself to die. And it is a very difficult process. You do feel pain, because that is a part of you which is burning up in flames. But then on the other side of that, on the other side of the pain, is the true you, which is birthed out from the ashes. And it reminds me of the analogy of a rocket. So if a rocket wants to leave the Earth's atmosphere, then it has to reach this thing called escape velocity. And that is going to allow the rocket to leave the Earth's atmosphere, to leave the Earth's gravitational field and go out in space. But before it can do that, it needs to reach that escape velocity. Otherwise, the Earth's gravitational pull will be too strong. He needs to reach that point, the escape velocity, to get out into space. And so in a similar way, there is an escape velocity that we also need to reach in our own lives. In the mental and in the spiritual plane, we need to reach some sort of escape velocity to overcome the pull or the gravity of our old self trying to pull us down, trying to pull us to remain the same. And how do we do this? How do we reach this escape velocity? And so I asked myself this question, and it made me think about religions and spiritual practices. So religions like Christianity, they've got church every single week, so they constantly reaffirm their faith. Or if you look at the Buddhist monk, they're meditating every day so they can connect to source, connect to God, and connect to the universe every single day as a reminder. Because what I've learned is that people need to be reminded more than they need to learn something new. And in a similar way, we need to constantly remind ourselves, to reaffirm ourselves of basically where we are going and who we want to become. A man without a goal is like a ship without a rudder. It's just going to be out in the ocean drifting with no destination in mind. And it's the same thing with us individuals. We need to have a goal, a North Star through which every single aspect of our life will be oriented towards, and that is going to dictate and influence the character who we need to become in all areas of our life towards that common goal. And that's what the higher self life is all about. It's all about setting your sights on the highest goal that you can possibly conceptualize, and then orienting every single aspect of your life towards that goal. And in doing so, everything in your life is interconnected and oriented towards that goal. And underlying that is the actions which you need to take towards getting to that destination. And underlying all of that requires a certain character that you need to be in all areas of your life to be able to reach towards that grand goal which you set for yourself. And that is the higher self path. Allowing your goal to transform you, allowing your goal to change you constantly from one form to another, from a lower state of consciousness to a higher state of consciousness, over and over again. This hero's journey is not a one-time thing. It is something which you will experience over and over again. The psychological death and rebirth is not a one-time thing. It is something that you will continue to experience over and over again. There is no end to the journey. There is no final destination. It is all about the journey. And I think that is a beautiful thing, because self is infinite. There's always more to uncover and learn about self. And until we come to the conclusion ourselves and embrace the truth that the only constant in life is change, and change is suffering, and we voluntarily pick up our cross of suffering because it is our responsibility to follow the path of self-actualizing, then that is when we are walking in alignment with our higher self. That is the moment we are walking in alignment with our higher self. Any time that we hold on to this deep truth and embrace it fully in our lives. To help you on your journey of change, I've made a free higher self worksheet which you can download, link down in the description below. Essentially it covers the things that we've talked about in this video, like finding out your North Star, coming up with the habits and the systems to help you get there. And also it includes elements of facing your own demons and your own dragons and your insecurities, because these are the things which are going to be holding you back. Link down in the description below. And as always, thank you guys for watching, and see you in the next video. Peace.